This is the Besotted Pride of West London podcast. And we're coming to you as we go into the weekend. The weekend where Brentford are going up north. They're going to play Leeds United, the champions of Europe. And we look forward to that, as we always do when Brentford plays Leeds United. But I'm sitting here in the virtual joint. It's actually a bit sunny outside now. It was a bit nippy the last few days. It's been nipped between the bud, as they say. But like I said, the sun's going to come out and hopefully it'll be bright and sunny all weekend as loads of Bees fans make their way up north to Leeds United. And I'm Billy Grant. Like I said to you, I'm sitting here in the virtual joint with my buddy Laney. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah. I'm feeling the cold, I have to admit. But as you say, the sun's come out for the weekend. And yeah, I'll back up to Elland Road, where it's a familiar hunting ground for us. We've had mixed fortunes over there over the years. They're always like incredible contests. They're always like really keenly fought, and there's always contentious talking points. And I don't expect this weekend to be any different, if I'm honest, mate.
And talk about contentious talking points. Obviously, there's one contentious talking point last season was when Sergi Canos, and we talked about that last week when he scored a goal against Leeds, and then he ran over to their fans and he got all sorts of things flung at him. But it doesn't look like he's going to be doing that this weekend, doesn't it, Laney? We talked about that a little bit last week, but there's been a little bit more sort of, not say clarification, but there's a bit of advanced, information on that as well, isn't there?
Yeah, well, we talked at length, didn't we, about Sergi Canos? It emerged that Brentford were going to be interested in accepting offers, or at least discussing offers for Sergi this transfer window. And we talked, if this is the end of the road for Sergi's, adventures at Brentford for the moment, then we kind of marked it because things happen in very quickly in the transfer window. It looks like Valencia have come in with. It's difficult to know how much kind of accuracy there is in the figures, but in some of the websites they're talking about £2.5 million bid to take into Valencia. I think Valencia's Sergi's boyhood club, and I imagine he would want to go there if he does want to go anywhere at all. There was a tweet, whether it was Sergi put the tweet out or it's Sergi's press people put a tweet out talking about the Leeds game last year, as you just mentioned, saying that was his favourite game of the campaign. The only game that he was played in his preferred position or his best position, which a lot of people
out of 31 games,
out of 31 games, he was only played once in his favourite position, which it's been taken several ways by the Twitter sphere. Some people have kind of pointed out that he'll play where he's told to. That's what we do at Brentford. We have got a lot of other exciting players that play on that right wing or on that left wing. And the Ivan Toney and Bumo partnership is what helped us survive last year. Their potency together, the partnership was just critical. We don't disrupt that because of another player wanting to play there rather than playing at right back. You just fit in. So I mean, sometimes you read too much into these things, but there was a thinly veiled dig there that he was being played out of position. And he talked about that a little bit in the interview that I did for him for the Brentford Revolution book, and he was saying that, but he flipped it at the end of that. I'll put the clip out. And he basically said, he's a fighter, and wherever Brentford ask him to play, he'll fight there. This looks a little bit more kind of pointed at, he wasn't being used properly, but we'll gloss over that because Sergi does need to be remembered. At the risk of repeating what we said last week, Sergi's legacy at Brentford is colossal. He has been part of that journey, and he's been central to us getting better and better, and us becoming a Premiership club on merit, rather than just a wannabe club that are just talking a good game. We've proved that we're in the right league, and the players that are there are gracing this level. So I think if Sergi is to go, then I think all the efforts need to be made to make it just as less salty as possible. things. No one's there forever. No Brentford player is going to be there in 10 years' time. We have to do what we have to do to survive, and if that means ruffling a few feathers or putting a couple of players' noses out of joint slightly because they're playing not where they want, but where Thomas Frank tells them, so be it. So yeah, I think this needs to be managed a little bit more carefully. Because we don't want to end it on a sour note, do we, Bill?
No, absolutely not. So hopefully we will move on for that. And listen, we're not going to talk much more about that because obviously everything is up in the air. You never know. Sergio may be still with us, on the 1st of February, and then we just move on, don't we? So as it goes. So we'll come back to that when there is something else to talk about. But talk about French transfers. Obviously we got Shard as well, who is the Bees, and he like I said to you, he made a little appearance last weekend, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's the players that have come into Brentford. There seems to be more talk about players going out from Brentford at the moment, and also some of our players kind of rejigging their loans. The biggest chat is about David Raya at the moment now. Now, the David Raya situation is something which we kind of tried to put our heads down on. I mean, we know that I think Arsenal came in for the bid for him for over £10 million. Was it last couple of summers ago?
Yeah, a couple of summers ago. Yeah, it was when we came up.
That's right, which we thought was quite hilarious. Especially all my Arsenal friends were just saying, yeah, we've just bid 10 million for your goalkeeper, so yeah, see you later. They just presumed we were going to sell, and we didn't, and they were a little bit like peeved, like, why didn't you sell to us? I'm like, well, because it was 10 million pounds. So anyway, it's now come back on itself. I mean, obviously there's a couple of situations that's happened. David Raya doesn't look like at the moment, and I'll say at the moment, renewing his contract. That could always change at any stage. If they offered him £1 million a week, of course he'd renew his contract. But that also isn't going to happen. So there's still work to go, I think, from Brentford's end to try and get him to be happy with the situation. But at the same time, we've got lots of clubs who are sniffing around saying, we quite fancy that David Raya chap. So there's a little bit of nervousness going around with our crew for a start, to thinking, is he going to be gone by the end of this window? And then obviously the next question is he going to be gone by the end of summer? We had the Strakosa scenario where he was moaning that he wasn't in the side, which we thought was quite bizarre, seeing as that he knew that David Raya was ahead of him and David Raya was going anywhere. But the fact is, David Raya, the club obviously thought at some stage, if you got a bid coming in 2 years ago, when we just got the championship and he gets better, his value is going to go up and somebody's going to come in for him. So they're sort of prepping. So that's Strakosa scenario. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one. But for me, I'm thinking, right, we're not quite ready to sell Raya now because we haven't got a ready-made replacement. But what are your thoughts on this?
I agree. We haven't got a ready-made replacement, but we have to get money for Raya. If he's not going to sign a new contract, which there's the chance, as we know, there's bargaining positions, and he's in a strong one at the moment. We need him. He's perfect for Brentford, and it would be foolish for us to just let him go for 20 million and just hope for the best. For us to find a mirror carbon copy of David Raya is near impossible. We have got quality backups, Strakosa and Cox. They both featured in the Brentford friendly with Leyton Orient during the week, which Brentford won 3-1. I think Sharda scored a couple, and there was good comebacks there for Good and Zanka and Hickey and Baptiste, and Damsgaard got more minutes, and Canos featured in that. It is a real. I mean, you use the term. It's a weird one, and it is a weird one because I'm not sure if I was a Premier League manager, I'd buy David Raya unless they play exactly the same way we do. I'm not sure I'd buy him for necessarily just his goalkeeping prowess. I mean, clearly he's a great keeper. He's a great shot stopper, and his reflexes are great. He's not tall, and he doesn't control his area brilliantly at times. But what he does do, he spots a pass and he can pass it. And the Brentford system And whatever system we do play is geared around his distribution. Now, obviously, distribution is something that he can, transfer to another team, but he's at his best. His skill set is suited to Brentford more, I think, than any other club in the Premier League, which is really where the sales pool is going to come from. I don't see him necessarily going abroad, not for the money that we'd have to, that would tempt us to sell him. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. He's not stupid. He's not stupid either, is he? He's an intelligent guy. Unless he's just going to go for the money, which I think would be foolish at this stage, because we're not going anywhere fast. He's guaranteed a start. He's going to continue to be pushing for Spanish international caps. The future's bright for him. So whether it happens this window, next window, or in 2 years' time, he's got a long career ahead of him, and I think he's better off staying at Brentford for a couple more years. Now, that's my personal view. If someone dangled £150,000 a week under my nose when I was on 50, I'd be seriously tempted. But Brentford need to keep him, and yes, they're going to get a colossal windfall at some stage on him. So it may be worth paying him the money that it would keep him here and sign a new contract, whether that's like another 2 years, another 3 years. It doesn't mean he can't go anywhere. As part of the gentleman's agreement, I guess, is if someone massive comes in for him, we don't stand in his way. But that's not what we do anyway. But we just need to protect our assets, and I think he's better off staying for the short term, and then give Brentford the reassurance that we're not going to see an asset walk away for nothing. We can't afford to do that. That's for sure, though.
Yeah, and he got offered a deal in the summer, last summer, actually, we offered a deal, an extension on his contract, which actually expires next summer, which is 2024. So he's basically got 18 months left on his contract. And normally what happens is that if he haven't sorted out a deal by next summer, Brentford normally think, actually, because, unless it's a scenario where it's a player maybe that's worth like $1 million or $1 million a little bit, they could, maybe afford to sort of kind of swallow that one. They normally look to offload. So it's a case that we've probably got about another 3 or 4 months to try and see if we could do a deal with David Raya. And if we can't, it looks like we will be offloading him definitely in the summer if we can't do a deal, which would be a tragedy, because again, he's just started to play for Spain. He didn't play in the World Cup for them. He did actually appear in the World Cup, but he was actually in their squad, and he's over in Qatar, with his feet up, just having a nice time. But yeah, it's good. It's one of those ones where you could see how the squad is building, I suppose, to a certain extent. It's interesting because, like I said, if anyone listens to the podcast, I spoke to one of Brentford's old goalkeeping coaches as well, who's actually who plays for he coaches a Charlotte FC, and like I said to you, you probably know I watched quite a lot of MLS, and I was out in America last year, and he went from Brentford's goalkeeping coach to Charlotte's goalkeeping coach, Andy, his name. Really, really nice bloke. And we was just chatting about, the players, and he was actually Raya's goalkeeping coach out there, and he was saying what an intelligent bloke he was, what a nice bloke he was, and sort of maybe like the qualities that you need to be a goalkeeper kind of full time. So we've had sort of quite a lot of goalkeepers which we've seen, they've come in and they look really good, and then all of a sudden we see that they don't quite get up to that next level. And, he said it's down to kind of like, you see goalkeepers kind of develop at a certain stage. And then some of them, it's almost like, I don't say they lose it, but they don't quite have that 80% or 90%, which clubs will feel that will make them a next level goalkeeper. Decision making, things on the ball, you kind of almost like, like sometimes you see a goalkeeper, they think, God, he's lost a bit of confidence there. He looked like really good, a year or two ago, but all of a sudden something happens at some stage, and then it's almost like they sort of like regress slightly. And I think there's almost like a key stage in goalkeepers which you have to get over to get to the next level. And maybe some of that comes from actually getting loads of game time, and that's probably why we've seen keepers like Ellery Balcombe, which we'll probably talk about a little bit, going out, and all these other players going out. Then eventually they don't actually make it, they get signed off. But David Raya is the one that actually kind of took us to that next level. And he also talked about the fact that we didn't have a good B goalkeeper, a backup goalkeeper, which could have cost us last season, because he said that nearly if you look at every team in the Premier League has a decent backup keeper, because you need a decent backup keeper, because if you don't, if you ever get yourself in a pickle in the Premier League, you can get absolutely hammered by these players, because there's some very good players inside. So I think the point I'm trying to say here is that I can't see Brentford letting Raya go unless we have something in the bag, because it's too dangerous to do that. And we saw what happened last season when we had our keeper who came in when Raya was injured, and he wasn't up to par at all, and that cost us a lot of points. It wasn't only him, but he did cost us quite a lot of points last season, and I don't think we're going to get ourselves into a situation like that again.
No. We that's something if we learn by our mistakes, and we learn by our near misses. And you're right, Fernandes wasn't the backup. And I personally think if the season had gone on with him in goal for a few more weeks, we could have it could have got really quite hairy. So anyway, that's by the by. Raya came back, and he showed his class, and we finished the season on a high and strongly. So I'll just go back to the point that he's so valuable to us that we have to work out a deal, but that's both ways. If he really isn't going to sign anything for us, and he's going to let his contract run down, we have to get rid of him soon. Whether there's someone out there that wants to buy him, like a Chelsea, who doesn't really need him quite yet, and they can loan him back to us, that would be a masterstroke. That's a win-win situation. But we have to trust the deal. We have to trust Phil Giles, that is the director of football. He'll be all over this. They know how valuable he is to us, and I don't doubt that every effort is being made to get to a conclusion that's right for both parties, to be honest.
Yeah, and a couple of more transfers. B's players, Mads Beck Sorensen has gone out on loan to Groningen as well, which is probably not unusual at all. I mean, he was sent over to Nice, and he played absolutely 0 minutes over at Nice. He came back in. Obviously, we have a look at players that come in for a couple of weeks, then we'll be able to put him out again. Thoughts about that, Laney?
Yeah, so Mads is... At times last year, he was excellent for us, and at times last season, he was a bit shaky. He's still a young pro learning his trade, and you're sorely exposed in the top flight. The fact that he got no minutes again, playing for Nice, kind of has helped him. Allows us to be in play for him. So that means he can go to another club, I believe. So I just hope there's some sort of guarantee in that deal that he is going to play, because there's just no point. There's no point in him being elsewhere if he doesn't get any minutes. Nothing's achieved. It's all they're having a nice little tour around Europe. I think it's like I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm sure if I was a pro. But he needs minutes. That's the reason he's going out on loan. Otherwise, he might as well be in League One, League Two. But that's obviously where we think he's pitched right. He's in the elite divisions. So there's obviously that heaps pressure on him, because if you're not performing, then you're going to get dropped, because everyone's wants to be surviving. So I just hope it's a success, because it's the players that we send out on loan, it's a pretty mixed bag of success and failure, isn't it? Not all of them are getting the minutes we would hope, which is a bit frustrating.
No, exactly. And talk about a few other players. Fosu maybe sort of staying up at Rotherham. We think there might be that scenario. He's up at Rotherham at the moment now, so he maybe stay up there as well on loan. And an interesting one, Ellery Balcombe. He's been pulled from Crawley, which is a bit of a basket case of a club at the moment now. They're one of these clubs who have been bought by a crypto company, and the people that own it. I mean, I've been sort of following that from day one because I'm actually quite interested to see how these crypto characters are trying to get involved in football and asking the reasons why they're getting involved in football. And our mate Monty as well, who is very much up in the crypto world. It's quite interesting talking to Monty because Monty's a B, but he's he's like properly up there in the tech world, and he's very well renowned. He's like a journalist, and he's a consultant, so he kind of understands how that it works, and it's still a little bit confusing, it has to be said. He said it's a bit of a risk game, there's some winners and there's some losers, and that's kind of what it is. And because it's the tech world, there are people that are just willing to sort of throw money into it and see how it works. Now that makes it quite difficult for football clubs because you want stability in football clubs, and if you've got somebody coming in just going, hey, that's a bit of a laugh. Whoa, this is really brilliant. Oh, I'll tell you what, let's just sign players off YouTube and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And just doing really mad things like, which is listen, it's all right being different, but there's got to be some sort of stability, and there's got to be a sort of strategy with that. And it seems that Crawley, they're just all over the place, you know what I'm saying? And they're throwing money here and there and changing things up, changing managers, changing this, that, and the other. And the fans are really quite nervous. So I think Ellery Balcombe got pulled from Crawley, quite rightly, and we thought we got to give him another loan. So we've given another loan down to Bristol Rovers, which is a good little loan, except for Laney. There's some people that don't quite think so, do they?
No, it wasn't like I know it's only probably one person, but someone tweeted pretty much straight away. It wasn't the welcome that he was hoping for. Something about don't rate black goalkeepers. So yeah, quite what his colour of his skin's to do with his goalkeeping ability, I'm not sure. But you're a black goalkeeper, so maybe you wanna comment on that.
Well, the thing about it is that I mean, I've never had that say to me before, but maybe they're saying it sort of kind of behind your back or anything like that. But it is quite a bizarre thing to say. Again, it just, you wonder what's going through people's minds when they come up with things like that. Because it obviously goes to show you that their brains are obviously wired in a particular way. It's almost like when Ron Nodes was talking about sort of kind of how black people can't swim. I think it was. No, black people can't play football because they don't like the cold. I think it was when Ian Wright used to play for them, and Mark Bright used to play for them back in the day, and that was his phrase. He's like going, no, they don't like it. The cold, they can't play in the cold. And, other people turn around and say, black people can't swim because their bones are too heavy, You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, people talk about unconscious racism and unconscious bias and things like that. And they say, no, it doesn't exist. But it obviously does, because there are people that just kind of do think that way. And they obviously think there's, people that think, actually, if he's black and he's in goal, he's obviously just not as good, because, what they can probably do, they can run fast and they can beat people up, because that's what, black people do, but they can't catch, So, listen,
to be fair to the Bristol Rovers fans, though, Bill, they smacked him out of court, to be honest. So, it showed that the majority of people don't think that way. But yeah, it's just an odd reaction.
It is an odd reaction, but then, just coming back to it, and we've gone a little bit of a tangential. Again, sometimes you notice when they come to games, the Bournemouth game was pretty average. So I think we're spending more time not talking about the Bournemouth game than we should do. There was a reaction down at Crawley. We're talking about Crawley, where their old manager, Yems, who got sacked for making apparently a load of racist comments when he was managing his team. So he got sacked, and it went to an FA tribunal, and the independent tribunal turned around and said, actually, we don't think it was conscious racism, or even unconscious. Was it? They say they didn't think it was conscious, or didn't think it was unconscious. Right? I can't remember what it was, but it was something really ridiculous, though, wasn't it? For Yems, and he'd gone around saying things to players like, your mates go around blowing up people, to like his Asian players, and calling one of his players a curry muncher and things like that. And I know some people they think, it's a bit of a laugh and it's a bit of banter, but it's kind of like, come on, he's meant to be a manager, and he's like looking after people who are sort of kind of 15, 16, 18, 20 who are going to be looking up to him. You can't be coming up with stuff like that. But there's a whole load of comments. You got to read it up.
It makes you wonder how he progressed in the game, because you don't start all of a sudden start saying stuff like that. It's something presumably he's always said, and then you get surely you get a reputation. I mean, Crawley's not his first job in the game, so there must have been you get people just talk about it. Oh, you want to be careful about him. He says this kind of stuff. I don't know. It's really odd that it emerged, at this stage in the pro game. It's something he must always have been saying. So, better out the game. That's for sure. He's been banned, isn't he, for 18 months or longer.
But again, just quickly, and we're going to move on to the game in a minute. But it's one of those things. Again, football is one of those sports where there's a status quo. It's just kind of, it is what it is. Even on the terraces, it's kind of like things are said and things are done, and it's just kind of just like you kind of sort of put your head in the sand a little bit. Even if you don't necessarily agree with it, you kind of don't say anything or don't do anything about it. And football's always kind of been like that. And you can see what it's been like. The fact that Ron Atkinson, who would boast about having more black players as a manager than anybody else would do, but then still would come out and say the N-word, that lazy N-word, right, on TV, right? It's kind of like, well, I'm not being funny, mate, but if you really did think that, you would not even in your mind come out with something like that. But again, for him, he's thinking, I didn't do anything wrong. It's just like this Yems character as well. He's sitting down there going, just because the tribunal have said this, I haven't done anything wrong. I've been right all the time. So in their heads, they actually think that this is right and this is the right thing to do because this is how football has always been. And that's why it's quite hard to change things within the game, because when you've got people like that doing things like this, and then you get a tribunal making decisions like that. I mean, I've actually been in an FA tribunal, so I know what it's like. And it's a proper process, but it's properly old school as well. You sit in this meeting for 3 hours and they go through all sorts of nonsense. And then you think, how do they come up with this decision? And you've got these kind of quite old sort of kind of doddery sort of men sort of going, oh, yeah. And some of them haven't read the material that they should have read. And then they're coming up with something. Then they're asking you questions of stuff that you've actually sent in your evidence that they should have read, and they don't kind of really know the background, and it's probably not very diverse, the set of people that are in the room that are making the decision. So I could imagine why they came up with that decision, to be quite honest with you. And it just goes to show you that things have still got a long way to go in football for things to be right, because if the authorities ain't got it right, mate, how could you expect things to get better? But listen, I don't know if you've got anything else to say on that, Laney, or...
No, well, no one's going to touch him with a barge pole now, so he's out the game for good, I would have thought. So yeah, good riddance.
Good riddance, Mr. Yems. Anyway, Saturday we went to the Muff. We went to Bourne-Muff, or we didn't go to Bourne-Muff. Bourne-Muff came to us actually, and they came down to New Griffin Park, and we needed to get 3 points just to get our record, a super post World Cup record, keep it intact, and we won 2-0. And it was a fairly convincing, fairly simple, fairly easy, fairly bog standard victory. We're going to go away. I'll get a little drink. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the Muff. So Bourne-Muff came to New Griffin Park, and horrible day. It was a horrible day, weather-wise. Oh, it's been horrible all week, and it's just finished off and horrible and wet and nasty and yuck and a bit cold and stuff. But Brentford didn't bother them. They just did what they had to do. Went out there, got themselves 2 goals and 3 points in the bag, and they thought, let's move on. And they moved on, and it was a good victory. It was a bog standard victory, and to be quite honest with you, we weren't expecting anything else, were you, Laney?
No, the beside poll before the game, there was like 83% of people predicted a win, which normally means we're going to lose. But the players weren't in the mood for any kind of banana skins at all on Saturday. We were faced with the news that Rico was out with an injury. Hopefully he'll be back for the trip to Leeds. So that kind of meant we had to shuffle the pack, and Yanelt filled in at left back. Toney was back, which was great. That was the boost. I mean, that was like the yin and yang I spoke about on the post-match podcast, was the fact that we had one talisman coming back into the team, Ivan, and then someone else we rely on really heavily that was missing, and we coped pretty well. I mean, it took a while for us to kind of get used to the change of shape, but Bournemouth had a few threats. Raya had to make a couple of saves, but to be honest, with the ebb and flow of Premiership games, with the quality that's involved in every team, at no stage really did I think that we were kind of under any kind of jeopardy of losing the game. And the first goal was always going to be critical. If they'd scored it, I'm sure they would have shut up shop and they would have kind of defended for their lives. The fact that it came our way, it was a slightly contentious penalty. I think it was a penalty all day long. Yeah, there was a bit of like linking of arms as they went into the area, but Toney was dragged down to the floor. Penalty was the right decision. They're all VAR'd anyway, So the manager after was whinging. Yeah, I mean, obviously, a manager's never going to be delighted to concede a penalty, and if he thinks they got it wrong, then he's entitled to his opinion. But
especially when that manager is under pressure,
yes,
as their manager is very much under pressure, to be honest with you. And if you've seen the Bournemouth fans, they're not happy with him at all. They were happy with him when he got the job, but caretaker manager, but they don't think he's taken the next level. So the Bournemouth fans are on his case, and they're on Bournemouth's case at the moment now, and a lot of them think that it's looking quite perilous.
He's looking more than perilous. Yeah, they look a relegated team. We've seen teams last season that were pretty toothless up front. If you're gonna leak goals, that's all well and good. If you're scoring goals at the other end, picking up points, picking up wins, they had a little bit of a purple patch for a few weeks when that got him the job really. But they're sneaking, they're slipping back down to, I think they will go down. I think 100% they'll go down, and it's a shame, but they've got new owners, and I think there's money. They might end up being one of those clubs that yo-yos backwards and forwards for a bit. So, but yeah, going back to Saturday, Brentford really just had to do what they had to do, and they did it really well. I don't think there was many more goals there. I think Norgard had a shot which he looked frustrated with, not to do better with. Matthias Jensen, who has signed a new contract to 2026, I think, this week as well, which is a good bit of news. He finished his goal brilliantly, picked out by Josh Da Silva, who probably had his best game for some time, he picked him out. Brilliant ball from the left-hand side, and then Matthias Jensen was unmarked in the middle, one touch, curled it into the top corner. So yeah, it was good to see that free from desire, that bouncing around for 2 home games on the trot now. It's something I'm not going to get tired of. Although Fulham seem to be trying to copy us, but sometimes that's like flat. The best. Flattery is
the best form of
whatever the expression is that neither of us can think of. Everyone's going, oh, is this? Yes, you're right. That's the expression we can't think of. But it's something that it finishes the match off superbly. Everyone walks out of that place buzzing, and even if it's a jammy 1-0 win, it feels the same as some of the best. So but we've had a long unbeaten run now, and that will come to an end. I'm not going to get used to it every week, but hopefully it's not this weekend.
That's right, unbeaten in the league since October, actually, which is quite impressive, actually. I mean, we won't mention to people that there's a World Cup in between that, because that's not really the point, is it? But yeah, unbeaten still. But we did have Man City in that period as well, so and Tottenham. So that is actually a fairly impressive run, and we're going to go into that run obviously playing Leeds United on Saturday. Fingers crossed that goes all right. And then after that, we've gone into February, because we've got no game next weekend. We've actually got a rest weekend next weekend, so I know a few people are probably using that opportunity to go.
It's the FA Cup, isn't it? We're not in it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So it's a rest weekend for us, like I'm saying. So which is all good. But anyway, listen, going back to the Muff game, we're going to go back to the game on Saturday to listen to what the fans had to say in the stadium after the Muff.
Brentford played well all round the pitch. Great. Not a normal starting lineup, but I thought everyone played well. Everyone adapted their positions. Josh Da Silva definitely had his best game back, I thought. As far as I can remember, Raya made one save in the second half, and it was a good save. It was a good shot on target from them. But other than that, We totally dominated the possession. Where we were on the pitch was really good. The substitutions that we made, when Roslev came on, he was great. Little cameos at the end from Zanka, brilliant. KLP did what he had to do, chase things down. Damsgaard really played well when he came on. He didn't have to do a lot, but what he did very well. So the standard 3 points, come on you beast.
I've seen much better performances from us. However, we played well in the first half, played well enough in the second half. I thought De Silva played particularly well today. I thought Toney was great. I thought Yano was great out of position at left back, but I didn't really see him put a foot wrong. I thought we played excellently and ultimately got 3 points. That's all that matters, isn't it?
We're a really good team. We're solid. That's a big 3 point. That's the sort of game we never used to win. You know, you won a couple of big games, you lose. We're not slipping back. We're just moving forward. I thought it was a perfect. You know, I don't think it was a game to be like against Liverpool and stuff. We played against Bourne-Muff. We did what we needed to do to beat Bourne-Muff. I think he got it absolutely right. Tactics. I think it's as you say, we could easily have just like dipped away because it wasn't a big team or a big name and stuff. With no disrespect to Bournemouth at all, but they weren't very good, to be fair. I'll give them that disrespect, but they weren't very good.
Flat back four to start with, which is fine. I mean, they play with their front two, so that kind of makes sense. I thought they came to frustrate us, which they did for a bit. They came to time waste, which they did for a minute, 2.5. And we were just more professional than them. They tried to drag us down to their level, but we were just too good. There were some nice performances on the pitch. Again, another good game from Josh De Silva, which is always good to see. But overall, we were better than them, and it showed in the end.
This club's got a very, very good future, and it's beautiful to watch it at the moment. Anyway, about to go and bounce around.
Professional performance, had a potential to be a bit of a banana skin, but very professional, a good, solid 3 points, and that's all you can ask for. You know, Bournemouth weren't great. They kind of handed us on the plate a little bit, but yeah, no, good performance and good depth of squad. I think there's a lot of players there that maybe aren't kind of straight on the team sheet, but they put a good performance in. And yeah, Josh De Silva I think had a really good game. Second goal, he set up basically. So yeah, really good, solid performance.
I thought we were the better team. To give Bournemouth their dues, I thought they were actually pretty good in the first half. Their press worked well, but I thought we were disruptive. This was, I think you mentioned earlier, this was a different Brentford formation and tactics. And we didn't do our usual free-flowing football, but we contained Bournemouth. We disrupted their play, and we did have opportunities to attack, and we took those. I'm an optimist by nature, but having followed Brentford for 3 decades, I sort of learned to be a realist rather than optimist. So what is our potential? I mean, we punch way above our resources. We punch way above our weight. How far can we go? Well, I was singing we're going on a European tour, and Pun said earlier, we go to Shakhtar or whatever. I'm thinking Napoli.
But there you go, fans after the Muff game. And, fairly box standard. They did the business. Everyone's pretty happy. You got to be happy with that, Premier League, top 10 still. You're allowed to say top 8 because it's sort of cheating a little bit, isn't it? Because surely it's like top 10, top 6, top 4. Can you say top 8?
Yeah.
Top 9? Could you say top 9, top 7?
Brentford FC, we'll say what we want.
Okay, we'll say what we want, right? Okay, we'll go top 8 then. We go. Yeah, we're doing all right. We're still above Chelsea as well, aren't we? Because Chelsea,
yes.
yeah, we're still above Chelsea. Still chasing our tails and Fulham, but we thought we'd leave it to the match in early March to try and settle that gap. He says, no pressure. I'm saying? Just go back to that game actually. So let's what was going on in that game? Brentford, we were effective at creating goal-scoring opportunities from the flanks, and also we were strong at finishing. But we created quite a lot of errors, it has to be said. We played the ball wide. We had a lot of possession in the Muff half. We liked long shots. We attacked down the left-hand side, and we favoured crossing the ball. Whereas the Muff, they stole the ball a lot from us, and they also created opportunities from long shot situations. But they were, as we said, poor at finishing, and they favoured long shots. The top performers in that game, according to Who Scored, was Matthias Jensen, 7.9. He was top of the pile. He was, and then Josh De Silva, then Ivan Pinnock, then Ivan Toney, then Vitaly Janelt. So all the top 5 rated players, according to Who Scored, were bees. And that's probably no surprise if you actually watched the game itself. Tell you something, though. I'll tell you who was watching the game as well was JB. JB always comes up with a few different facts and funks. And he's got some post-muff facts and funk.
Are you ready for this? I told you it was coming. Who? JB. And he's ready to sock it to you one time. Get it.
Hello, Jonathan Birchall here again. A Brentford 2-0 win at the G-Tech and an Ivan Toney penalty. It was a fairly textbook Saturday. 2-0 is already our new home's most frequent league scoreline, equal with 0-0. Incidentally, 2-0 at Griffin Park was the 4th most common scoreline. 1-1 was the most likely result. We all know about Ivan Toney having scored more penalties than anyone else in Brentford's history. He's only been here for 2.5 seasons and now has scored 18 successful league penalties. That's 10% of all the league penalties we've scored in the last 50 years. As we get used to pronouncing the name of our new number 9, we've had 9 previous Kevins. O'Connor, Dearden and Godfrey are well remembered. Less so Austin, Rapley, Dennis, Watson, Harding and Harris. But back in 1949, we had Dr. Kevin O'Flanahan on our books. Not as our physio or club doctor, but as a winger who appeared 7 times. Before he joined us, he'd already played for Ireland and had also represented them in rugby. In his younger days, he'd played Gaelic football, hurling, was the Irish 100-yard champion, won 3 national long jump titles and reached the last 8 of the Irish Amateur Golf Championships. In his spare time, he was also a GP in Ruislip. Hard to imagine that versatility ever being repeated.
Leeds United, champions of Europe. We're going up to Leeds on Sunday. Bit annoying slightly, actually, going up there on Sunday, 2 o'clock kickoff, which means that, by the time you get up there, you probably get an hour in the pub before you have to head down to Elland Road, But yeah, we're going up to Holbeck, as we normally do. There's a few bars all kind of in the Holbeck area, which we'll tuck right into. But Leeds United, funny season Leeds have had, because it was kind of one of those scenarios where Leeds, if you looked at them about before the World Cup break, and you thought you're kind of sitting there in mid-table, maybe you're not doing particularly brilliantly, but you're not in any danger of going down, and still probably they're not in any danger of going down as such. But if you speak to Leeds fans, they're very much not happy with their manager. They're very much not happy with the way they're playing, other than obviously the Cardiff game where they spanked Cardiff out the waters, and they're just generally not happy, and they're a little bit nervous about their situation at the moment. I mean, Laney, what's your thoughts on the Leeds?
They're never happy, are they? They're never happy about anything, and they're doing better under Marsh than they were under Bielsa. They were much lower in the division then. I know there's only a couple of points to separate them from the bottom of the table, so they've just not improved from last season, having spent a colossal amount of money. On their day, they're still a very dangerous, very exciting team. They've got some players that we need to be very concerned about. They'll come at you in waves. It's a game that we have to manage well. They're all out attack when their tails are up, and it's a similar one to the Villa away. To be honest with you, they're capable of doing to us what Villa did to us if we don't defend right, and we don't start the game right, and we don't do X, Y, Z right. We have to be properly on it. There's beef between the two clubs, and we gave them a proper thumping at G-Tech, the 5-2 game. But if we're being honest, it was a game that they were in pretty much till the end, and that it was that brilliant Toney hat-trick, the free kick, the lob, and it was a game that would be a standout when it gets to the end of the season. We'll look back, and that will be mentioned at the in the end of campaign podcast for sure. So yeah, there's plenty to be worried about, but there's also they're very, very flaky at the back, and we can sort of tuck into that. It's something that we're good at, a counter-attack. I'm not putting them in the same bracket as Man City, but that was a game where we soaked up pressure, and we were ruthless on the counter, and that's something we have to do. We will be under pressure for big long phases of this game, but if we can stop them, then there's points to be had here.
Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, listen, as you know, we always like to go over to the opposition fans to see what they've got to say, because they know more about their team than we do. So I'll tell you what I did. I've just gone over and I've gone to Rafa Vela. And I went to Rafa and I said, Rafa, tell me everything you know about the champions of Europe. And this is what Rafa had to say.
Hi, Brentford fans. Rafa here. I am a season ticket holder at Bernabeu Stadium for over 30 years, and I've been supporting Real Madrid all of my life. I'm going to tell you all you need to know about the Champions League and how to win it. Come on, Brentford, a la Madrid. See you soon.
No, you got it wrong, mate.
What do you mean?
Leeds, champions of Europe.
No. You asked me to get a fan from the champions of Europe. So I spent ages this weekend ringing around Spain, all over the place, getting someone from Real Madrid.
You've not done your own work, mate. You're a bit naive, if I'm honest with you.
What?
Everyone knows it's Leeds.
Leeds are what?
Champions of Europe.
You're joking. After all the hard work.
Can never joke about these things, Bill.
Oh, mate. Jeez. Okay, listen. Right, tell you something.
Sort it out.
I'll sort it right out. To tell you something, you're lucky, because this is one that I've got. Just pulled it out of the bag, actually. We got
just
Darren.
In case.
Yeah, just in case. I've got Darren from LS11 Podcast. And he's going to give us the lowdown on the real champions of Europe.
Right, now you're talking.
It's Darren from LS11, the Leeds United podcast, and you can subscribe, and give us a 5-star Apple Podcast review. If you so wish. I mean, I'm really not sure why a Brentford fan would want to do that. But then again, I'm not a Leeds fan. I'm a Bourne-Muff fan. I've just covered Leeds for, God knows, 15, 20 years now on radio and such like. It's a good look. It's a fun little pod with me, former Leeds United player Ben Parker, and the guitarist from the Pigeon Detectives, Ryan Wilson. He can't sing, but he can play a guitar pretty damn good. New music from the Pigeon Detectives coming out soon. So we're all excited about that. So first of all, quick summary about the pre-World Cup season you want. So, it's not been great for Leeds, I don't think. There's been some cracking games, but they've all sort of seemed to have had the same the way they've sort of played out. Leeds are very good at giving away goals right at the end of the first half or the beginning of the second half. That seems to have been a thing for them, and that doesn't seem to have stopped between the beginning of the World Cup and coming back after the World Cup. I think the World Cup came at a good time for Leeds, but then they had such a long wait, and the first game back was Man City. It was almost almost like a foregone conclusion. It's not been a great time since the World Cup as well. They're currently 17th, something like that, or 17 points. There's 2 points between so many teams. I mean, one win and a couple of results, you're pulling yourselves out of it. But Leeds have got problems, I think, and. It's a difficult one, but there's some big teams down there again. Everton down there again, Southampton, Nottingham Forest seem to just be pulling away a little bit and have got that sort of sorted. So if I was giving it marks out of 10 up to date, it's probably going to be a 4 or a 5, really. I don't think you can go much more on that. With regards to the manager, Jesse Marsh, look, it was always going to be difficult coming in after such a iconic character like Marcelo Bielsa. And was it right to get rid of Bielsa at the time? For me, I don't think it was. I think they should have backed him in that January transfer window and given him to the end of the season. I think it would have been all right, but they didn't. And they chose and went for Jesse Marsh. It was always going to be I think you're on a bit of a hiding to nothing really coming in after someone like that. It's almost like when you look at like someone like Manchester United and they get rid of Alex Ferguson, and I'm not comparing like with like, but it's almost you're going to have to go 2 or 3 managers, well, Manchester United, 4 or 5 managers down the road before you get one that sort of fits and starts working right. And I think with Leeds, I'm not 100% sure. The jury is out with Jesse Marsh. I think there's no doubt about that. I've seen stories over the last couple of weeks of, are they going to be, they've got a short list of new managers to come in. But, he seemed, I quite like Jesse Marsh. I like what he says. And, he's brought in some good players, certainly during the summer with Aronson, or he's just tailed off a little bit after the World Cup. But Tyler Adams is an absolute baller. So he's done right. Look, he talks a good game, does Jesse. And I think you've got to give managers time, whether or not you're a big fan of them or not, and what results are doing. I'm sure at some point it will come to a point when the hierarchy. If results don't go their way over the next sort of like 3 or 4 weeks, they may do something and pull the trigger. But you look at what Nottingham Forest did, and they kept with Steve Cooper after just terrible results, and it's just starting to build and build. And I think you've got to. I mean, fans are sort of split really, unsurprisingly. Half like Marsh out. Other half, let's keep with him. It's I think you've got to give him time, really. But it's a difficult one. The squad itself, look, I think it's a lot better than it was. I think there are only a couple of players out from feeling better. They've lost a couple of key players from last season. Calvin Phillips, obviously, but he was injured for quite a lot of the last season. Would always be a big miss. Rafinha going off to Barcelona. What a player he was. So there is always going to be really big shoes to fill, I think. And but bringing in Tyler Adams, Aronson was a fantastic signing. Some of the other signings, Christensen, not so great at the moment. He's just still finding his feet, I think. We're quite excited to see what the new striker, which is lovely, even after Patrick Bamford has just come back from injury and scored in the loss against Villa. But his injury record over the last 18 months or so has been pretty poor. So they needed to bring in a striker. There's no doubt about that. Rodrigo's been putting in the goals. Nonto looks a fantastic prospect. He's only 19, and he is terrifying defences. He is definitely one to look out for. And the new guy, Jorginho Rutter, who knows? Again, he's young. He could be. Victor Orta, the director of football, has been pretty good in sort of identifying those sort of players that can sort of like build up to become better players, which was something Bielsa was so good at, getting the best out of the players that he had. Look out for. I mean, Tyler Adams, everybody knows now after the World Cup, but definitely Willy Nonto is the guy to look out for. If they're looking to strengthen, then defensive. I'm wondering whether Liam Cooper is nearly done. And then you look at what's sort of like in that defence. Stroik seems to be pretty good as a central defender. And then it's who's with him. And at the moment, Leeds are pretty good attacking, but defensively, they're not so great. And Diego Llorente is certainly can be a little bit calamitous. Robin Koch has had his good games. He's had his very, very bad games. So it's a difficult one at the moment, but yeah, defensively, they've brought in a left back that can also play central defence in Max Verber. So he looks pretty good. I quite liked the look of him. So it'll be interesting to see how he pans out over the next few weeks at all. Since the World Cup, it's been weird, isn't it? Really, everything's up for grabs. It seems. I think right at the moment. Certainly, you look at the top of the table, and Arsenal, 8 points clear. It's theirs to throw away, but there's a lot of football to be played. I know it's an old cliche, but there is. We've still got half a season to go, so much can happen, really. After last season, I think, if you can get up and just string a couple of results together, then I think Leeds fans will be a little bit more happy and feel a little bit more secure, I think. The last match against Brentford, I think most Leeds fans have sort of deleted it from their memory, if I'm being honest with you. 5-2. Brentford were on fire that day. Ivan Toney was fantastic. I think it was one of those days where sort of everything just clicked, I think, for Brentford and didn't for Leeds, really. And, you do get games like that, Leeds were fighting for their life down at New Griffin Park at the last day of last season and managed to get the result. So, it's an interesting one. It was that last game, I think, early on in the season. We'll probably just forget about that. Well, we'll forget about it until Sunday when Brentford come up to Elland Road. And, who knows? I mean, Leeds are coming off the back of a loss against Aston Villa in the league. As I'm recording this, they play Cardiff in the third round replay of the FA Cup. So, who knows what will happen with that. If they get through that, they're up against Bourne-Muff or Accrington Stanley, which, that says a Leeds loss all over it. But Brentford, look, it'll be as ever at Elland Road. The atmosphere will be spectacular. There'll be a lot of noise. And it should be an absolute cracker. I'm expecting goals. I'm going to go, as I've said on our Opposition View pod with Billy, I'm going to go 12-11 Leeds, just sneaking it by 1 goal. Thanks for having me on, guys. Good luck with the rest of the season after about 5 o'clock on Sunday.
So there you go, Darren from the LS11 Podcast, giving us the lowdown on Leeds United. Cheers, Darren. I was on his podcast. If you want to go and check it out as well, the LS11 Podcast, Leeds United Podcast, gives you a preview. Give it on both sides. Laney, Leeds United.
Yes, mate.
Sunday.
Yes.
And I know this is such a cliche, but literally it could go either way. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have gone, I'm quite looking forward to this. But I have to admit, there's something about this game now. And this is nothing to do with the Brentford Leeds so-called beef or whatever it may be and all the stuff that they did with us and all that kind of stuff. Because it's interesting, they've kind of got a bit quiet on that recently because they've obviously got other things they need to focus on. But, they've brought in a few players. I mean, they've got that, Notto, who they've brought in, who looks lively, to say the least. And they did score 5 goals against Cardiff. I mean, they did struggle at the weekend against Cardiff, but then they scored 5 goals against them at Elland Road, which obviously is going to get them bumping. And the last thing that you want is for a team to be coming up against a team who is got some sort of momentum, got some adrenaline behind them, and that's what they've got, haven't they?
Yeah. As I said, I'm not, I can be as childish as you want about Leeds, and I'm always happy to do that. But we have to acknowledge that they are, a decent attacking team. And they do pose us problems. You'd hope that we're better than Cardiff, and you'd not really want them to come out with their, with a bit of a swagger after that. The midweek replay. You would want them to come out of that with a few injuries and extra time and all that kind of stuff. But it's a game that it's going to be a cracker. I think Leeds away is probably my least enjoyable away trip of the season. I really don't like going there. It's an out of town experience. It's not near the centre. The pubs, I think, the decent ones are quite a walk away. They're a weird bunch, and it's something I just don't enjoy. Although we've done okay up there, so it's not as if we lose every time. But it's got the potential of being a right end-to-ender, and hopefully we'll come out of it on the right end of a win.
Yes, and I mean end to end. Let's see what ends that their Leeds are going to be playing in. They're going to strengths attacking set pieces, coming back from losing positions. Talk about Brentford in the 93rd minute last season. No, we won't talk about that, Laney, will we? No.
No.
And stealing the ball from the opposition is what they're good at. They like attacking down the left. They play with width and they are aggressive. Where they're weak, keeping possession of the ball, stopping opponents from creating scoring chances, creating individual errors, defending counter-attacks, and they're very weak at protecting the lead and also very weak at defending against skillful players. So all of a sudden you sort of think, Sharda, Mbumo, Ivan Toney, well,
exactly that.
Yeah,
exactly that. We've got all the ammo. So yeah, just get it on, Bill. Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. So listen, Laney, give us a score prediction for the game against the champions of Europe, please.
I am going to go for a 2-2 draw, Mr. Grant.
Oh, right. And I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to the mighty Bees.
Oh, like it.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm going for it, mate. Like I said, I've had a bit of a head cold. I've been all over the place the last week. So now it's all cleared. I can see clearly now the rain has gone. So,
see clearly now the snot has gone.
It's not the way I like it at all, Laney. But anyway, listen, this is the Besotted Pride of West London podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and write a review for us, please. And it'll go up on iTunes and we will read it out in weeks to come. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the pub. We were going to go back to the pub for this game, but it was just so bloody cold out there. I didn't want to come out of my house and go down the boozer, but we're going to go down the pub for a game in the very near future. Maybe we'll go down the pub for the Arsenal game in a couple of weeks' time, actually. That should be quite a good laugh, actually.
Yeah, let's do that, mate.
Yeah, let's do that for a start. Don't forget to buy us a beer if you go down the pub, besotted.com/beer. And also don't forget besotted.com global as well is our social media platform. What else have we got going on here as well? What we've got is, like I said to you, the man of the match, actually. Did you know the one the man of the match? Did you know the man of the match at all? Yeah.
Well, I'll give it to Josh Da Silva.
Oh, it's interesting because Jensen won the Besotted Global Man of the Match over Josh Da Silva and Ethan Pinnock. It was actually a 2-horse race with Jensen and Da Silva this week. Like I said to you, thanks for David again for the over in Australia or Tasmania, actually, who's been doing the Besotted Global Man of the Match every single week. And at the end of the season, he'll be totting it up and letting us know exactly who is the player of the season. So that's about it, really. I am getting ready. I've got another game. I've got a game on Saturday morning, actually. I've got a bit of a Panthers match to move to 3G because it's so cold out there. All the games have been called off because of the ice and cold. So I'm going to be standing on the touch line, checking out the goals. Fingers crossed we can get back on track. We've had a couple of dodgy results then. And then I'm going to be getting on the train with my daughter Bella off to Sheffield to go and see the Blades. I haven't seen since the World Cup. And we're going to be doing a bit of a Sheffield night before heading up to Leeds on Sunday morning. I know there's a lot of bees going up to Leeds for Saturday night, so go up, be safe and enjoy yourselves, and I'll sit you on Sunday morning somewhere in Holbeck, in one of them bars in Holbeck. I'll be there for sure. So lady,
safe journey for everyone that's going up. So let's come back to London with 3 points tucked into our pockets.
That's right, nice with 3 points. So like I said to you, good luck to you all and enjoy yourself. We're going to see Leeds, we're going to the Champions of Europe,
Go on, you bees.
Come on.
Go on, you bees.
Bees. Champions of Europe.